Usually you want to do the chattering at the very final stage after you finish everything. Okay. This one hasn't been trimmed yet, so I just want to show you the chattering. Let's brush a little bit of slip there, so you will see the contrast. And usually for brushing the slip, you might want to wait a little bit so the slip is dry enough. You don't chatter on a spot like this too soon. Okay, you need to wait till the slip dry. But this is just the demonstration, so I'll just go ahead and do that. Okay, but you want to wait till the slip dry completely. And sometimes after I brush, you see that when you brush it on, you might have the brush stroke. Usually, if you want to do chattering, the brush stroke isn't very good looking. So you could burnish a little bit. So after you brush your slip, wait a little bit, and when the slip is dry, you use a rubber rib to kind of smooth the surface. This is to remove the brush stroke. Okay? Especially if your brush is very stiff. My brush is very hairy and very thin, very soft. So the stroke isn't that clear. But if you're using a very stiff brush, you might have the brush texture too much. Okay, so using that to remove it. Okay. So this is my number one chattering tool. The special design for this one is that this part here, I intentionally make it a little bit longer, so it's helping to trigger the vibration of the tool. So the tool is, when you are cutting it, the tool is jumping, okay, jumping, right? And you want to help the tool to jump, so you want to hold a little bit longer. You don't want to hold it too close, okay? Hold maybe till the end of the tool and grab it firmly, okay? And this way, this is like 90 degrees from this here. See that? It's 90 degrees. You want to tilt it a little bit over 90 degrees, okay? The more you tilt it, the jumping gap will be bigger. If you are like 90 degrees, the jump is kind of a small, okay? But if you tilt it more, the more you tilt it, the jump is going to be a big jump. So just make sure what you want the result. Usually I kind of go over 90 degrees a little bit, that's all. And when you are moving down, hold the tool like this, right? Move it down, you just go slowly. Okay, go slowly. You don't go too fast. And usually I like to do only one-time event. So you don't go back and forth. That way, especially if you have the black slip, that is not very good looking. If your piece doesn't have a slip, maybe you go back and forth, you will see a lot of texture going on that. Might be interesting, but if you have a slip, one time. Okay, and the factor affecting the texture of the chattering texture is that how fast you spin your wheel, how fast you move your hand, okay, and also how dry or how soft your clay is, and how sharp and what angle you are holding the tool. So there are many different factors. Okay, you can practice, okay, and try to find the best way you like. Okay, so now I'm holding the tool, tilted a little bit over 90 degrees. On the top portion, I'm focusing more of this angle here. Okay, from your eyesight, it's your left. It's on your right hand side, but it's on my left. Okay, on my left. I'm gonna focus more on here and then cut it down, maybe half of it, and then I'm gonna focus more on the right hand side and cut it down, so you will see the difference. Okay, right. So and make sure the center is very important too. And speed the wheel a little bit faster. that's focusing on more of the left-hand corner from my eyesight, okay? And usually I would define a little line using the corner of center. See that? The tap centering is a very good technique to have. See that? You can move it up right away, get it to the center. Just use the corner to maybe draw a line to define it. And now I'm going to use my right hand corner on your side is left hand corner. Okay. A little bit. Okay. See that I'm moving my hand slowly. Okay, so see that that's a triangle, and this is like a water drip. Okay, water drip, a little bit different. Okay, and also if you are focused more on here, the whole blade, okay, the whole length. Let me do it here. There's no slipper. You will see the difference. Right?
Oh, okay.
So you see that?
Yeah,
It's
there's
more like a
stripes.
straight lines. Okay. So 3 different part of the tip, you could have a different result. So that's called chattering. Okay. And this tool, my number 1 trimming tool, is specifically designed for chattering. All right. So that's before I started. So we could have more room to shave it out. Shave it out. And then usually when you are trimming this kind of a shape, you see that the rim is not wide enough, so it's easy to tip over. Usually if you trim the little opening jars, you have to do it on a chalk, okay, on a chalk. So here is the chalk.
You put it in water before?
Yeah, the reason I am putting this in the water is that most of the studio, okay, the studio you go to, they best fire the chalk, so that the chalk is stronger. Okay? If you bisque the chalk, when the clay has been bisqued, it's very porous. Porous meaning it has some water right away. So if you are using the clay to try to hold it, the water was drawn from the chalk, and it's very easy to separate. Okay, so it's not going to hold your chalk more secure. That's why I soak it in the water, so the chalk is absorbed 100% of the water. And once it absorbs 100% of the water, it's very easy for the clay to stick on it without coming out. You see that?
Oh, wow.
Okay. If you have a just this chalk, when you put the clay to hold it, you can pick it up right away, right?
Yes,
but
right.
now you see that when you are soaking in the water, you see that the clay is sticking on chalk.
It's not gonna mess up your piece? That water?
The water, so that's why I am wiping it out.
Oh, okay.
But if you are worried about messing it up,
I mean, like putting more water in the place that, like that rim of water?
well, you want to wipe it up. Okay, wipe it up. So I don't think it's going to affect that much, but if you're so worried about the water getting onto...
If you're not worried, I'm not...
I'm not worried, but I'm just showing you that if you are worried about that, put the clay there.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
So it's like a cushion in between.
Okay.
Right? So that's how you do it. So you have a clay in between. Now the first thing you want to do is try to get your things level. Okay? So there's a very good tool to level it. This is a bubble leveler. Okay? You can buy it easily from hardware store or even online. Okay? And just place this right in the center. Find a bubble and adjust the bubble so the bubble is in the center. Yeah, you have on your phone too. Yeah.
Yeah, this seems way easier to use.
Because your hands are so dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually this part over here.
Yeah, and this is only cost
with
like...
the buttons.
You have to have a good phone Not all the phone has it, right? So this costs like $2-3 a piece, right? And it's easy that, see, they put it in the center and find your level first, right? So now it's level, but it's not in the center yet, right? So now, if you don't know how to tap center, I showed you last time, right? Just use the needle tool to make your mark. You see that? That was the mark, so I am pushing this direction, little by little, and eventually you will have your piece in the center, okay? If you know how to tap center, it's just easy to, okay? All right, so that's good. Make sure you, after you center, you secure your chuck first, and then also you want to secure your pot too, right? You can see that after the chuck has been soaking in the water, it's a lot easier for your clay to stay without falling off, right? Okay, so that's the setup of trim your pot upside down, put it on the chuck. All right, let's do here. So this will be the outer part of my foot ring. And here is the inner part of my foot ring. So I know where I could remove the clay.
How do you decide the diameter of your rim in proportion to your pot?
There's no rule for what size of the diameter. The smaller the foot ring, the lighter it looks. Okay? But you want to be finding the smallest but stable enough.
Yeah.
You don't want to make your foot ring like this wide,
Yeah.
which is very easy to tip over, right? So usually that's my judgment. That's small enough but stable enough. And I think this size should be stable for this size of the vase, the munja. And when I have many different trimming tools, but when the clay is a little bit softer, I think the looping tool is much easier to cut through it. So that's why you see I am using, this piece isn't very dry, okay? So I am using the loop tool to trim. Right, so this is my pear-shaped loop tool. I have a new one I developed. I think it's easier to go to the foot and the foot. So this is the square shape of the loop tool that I just got it recently. Okay, so use that. You could take care of the foot much easier.
That looks nice.
And this is made of tungsten carbide, so they don't get dull easily, and they stay sharp much longer. Right, still thick. From my experience, when you're knocking, if it sounds like a drum, that's probably enough. But now it feels like very dull, so I could go a bit deeper. And I also have a tool. Actually, you could check the thickness before you trim. Still thick. And this tool is very sharp, so usually if you are trimming your clay too soft, the clay is going to stick on here. Make sure you don't try to use a finger to pick it. You might cut your finger. Okay, this tool. But in my case, this is perfect, not too wet. So you see that the clay is not sticking onto the tool. And usually I would take care of the inner part first, this part. That's when I get this part right, I could judge how much clay I could remove from the outside. Okay, it's getting there. You hear this difference?
Yeah.
Okay? It's like a drum already, so I would stop right here. And I just clean it up. Right, so I get this part right, and then now I'm going to compare the inner corner and the outer corner. It should be, the outer corner should be low or at least the same. Usually when we throw flat, right, and then there's a curve. So this part here should be the same level here. So that's why I usually like to take care of the inner part first. Okay, so that's about same height. And usually I leave my foot a little bit thicker. Thicker, you could adjust it, right? You could cut it shorter if you don't like the very tall foot looking. But too short, you could not adjust it. So that's why I tend to leave my foot a little bit thicker. Okay, the larger one back here. You see, when I'm trimming, I always have my thumb holding to the tip of the blade to stabilize it, right? As long as I could hold it, I always do. Here is the chattering mark. So I go ahead and remove the chattering mark. So I think I removed most of the clay. If you have the stainless tool, you could do the final trimming using this tool. When you are using the stainless tool, the surface will be much smoother versus the tungsten carbide. Somehow the carbide if you don't grind it very fine, you could see the lines, the very thin hairy lines when you are using the tungsten carbide tool. On the very final stage, usually I speed up the wheel a bit and then hold the tool very steady and go all the way down. So you see that the surface is much smoother. Okay. Right? So the foot is quite thick here, so it should be very strong. Before I remove from the chuck, I would do the chattering here, okay? Brush the black slip, and then after I flip over, I do the other side again. Usually you don't chatter here at the beginning. After you flip over, you do that. Okay?
Oh, okay.
But I just show you that when this is thicker, you could chatter. So I do a little bit of a demonstration on that. Let's clean it up. So that it's not jumping on the slip. Still need to clean a little bit better, but I will do that later. Okay. All right. So again, brush the slip over. Somehow, if you find the slip is too thick, there's a little trick. You can add a drip of sodium silicate into your slip. That way your slip will become more liquidized.
Okay.
Just a tiny little drip. Okay.
Would you do that just in a small amount of?
Yes, you could use a smaller amount.
Doesn't that mess it up?
Yeah. Yeah, just a little bit. You will feel the difference. It start to become more fluid and easier for you to brush along. So I will brush the whole thing in black, okay, and do chattering on the bottom portion and also on the top and the shoulder. And then in the middle, I will use a Sgraffito tool, okay, Sgraffito tool to cut some fine lines, the line that is a little bit finer. Right, so that's good. And usually after you brush, the slip has a little bit contain a little bit of water, so it's kind of wet. So if you cannot wait, just use a little bit of a hair dryer or heat gun to blow it dry a little bit. And like I told you that I usually like to use a rib to smooth. You can see the brush stroke, and using rubber rib to smooth it out. This might be a little bit too wet. Let's see here. Yeah, start to drag the slip. And I find out this rubber rib, this red color is good. It's more flexible, softer. So if you like use the rib, use a softer one too. See that? The slip is a little bit wet, that's why I drag a little. So slip is made of clay also. Okay, so it's clay on clay. It's not like the people ask me why don't you use underglaze. Clay on clay is the binding is better, especially when you put it on your greenware. That the slip stick better onto your surface, better than the underglazes.
Can we use blowtorch to dry the slip?
You could use a torch to dry a little bit, yeah, torch. Yeah, normally I use a torch to dry it up a little bit, torch or heat gun. I have a very good heat gun in my home studio. Just 1 minute it will be dry enough. Alright, so that is the slip coating. And let's do the same thing, okay, holding the tool, especially when I'm starting from this point. So usually I will focus more on this part here. If I focus on this part here, this might hit here. So that's why I started this angle, okay, and then the other angle. Let it feel wet. Right, and then I'm going to focus on the right hand from my side right hand corner. Yeah, the slip is still wet. That's why the texture isn't very good looking.
Maybe do the spiral. Maybe do the spiral.
Here is a little bit better. Okay. This part here, I'm just going to mess it up. Wasn't a very good looking, so I'm just messing it up. Okay, so that's the foot. And let me turn it upside down and finish up the top. And by the way, usually I have a stamp on. I just stamp right on the foot. I have a small size of a stamp. Okay, like that. Usually you want to do that at the right time, and the slip is a little bit wet, so that's why it wasn't. This part here looks good because the top is a little bit drier than the bottom, so that's why you have a better looking on the top when the slip is not too wet. then I am bringing in my stainless screening tool so that the surface will be smoother. Okay, I brush the slip back on again. So you have your torch. Okay. Yeah, some people are afraid of the torch. Okay. Oh, I borrow it? Yeah. All right. So, yeah, you don't wanna.
There's a wet spot.
Yeah, there's a spot there that has no. I missed. We could patch it after I smooth it.
Wet spot. Like
Hmm?
it's red.
Wet spot?
Yeah.
That is probably a little bit too thick there. Still wet. Still wet. Right, so you can see it's much smoother when you apply the rubber rib to burnish a little bit.
And how do you know how much pressure you have to apply?
Yeah,
Feeling it?
yeah, a little bit pressure. Usually people put it on too light, so they don't cut it deeper.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to hold it, grab it a little bit firmer. See the difference when your clay is not too wet. And this is much nicer looking. And then this is the Sgraffito tool. So if you want to carve it, you can carve it out here. Let me try this little bit further. Because the Sgraffito tool, when you are carving it, the clay a little bit drier is helping a lot. So that the clay is not, because the tip is very small. So if you are doing it too wet, the clay is going to stuck in here. Okay. Right. And I usually raise it up, put it on the hand wheel, and then do the carving, or turn it sideways. Turn it sideways. I have a sponge or something that I cut a little hole in the middle, so it's sitting in there, and it's easier for you to carve it. So let's do just a demonstration. So you can design your own patterns. See the line?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's it's fairly easy using this Sgraffito tool to carve out a very fine decoration. And this part could be a little bit drier. It's even better. You can see that there's still a residual slip there. But if you dry it further, it will be much easier to carve it out. Okay, so that's the.
Does that have a tiny gold point on the end?
Yeah, it's a little hook. This is the so-called Korean style carving Sgraffito tool. So there's a little hook there. So when you carve out, it's not easy. And also the line is much cleaner than if you use the needle to draw. I have 3 different thickness of the tips, so you could carve out a small line. See that this one is even smaller. So in the middle, if you want to do a detail, that a little bit more tiny lines there in the middle. Again, this is very easy. The clay is very easy to stuck in here. So do that one is a little bit drier. It's much easier. Your line will be much cleaner. Okay, so that's our demonstration. I will finish it up later. Okay, so I will show you the whole piece. But for now, it's been 1 hour, so you have only 2 more hours to practice. Okay.